Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for fact-based analysis and sharp coverage of today's biggest global stories. Today, we're taking an in-depth look at why Donald Trump's shifting and sometimes contradictory approach to the war in Ukraine is raising eyebrows, and why a former U.S. Army lieutenant colonel says that inconsistency makes his upcoming meeting with Vladimir Putin unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Daniel L. Davis, a retired U.S. Army lieutenant colonel with years of operational and strategic experience, has been closely watching Trump's handling of Ukraine policy. His verdict? Trump's objectives change so frequently that no one, not even his closest allies, can say with certainty what his negotiation stance will be from one day to the next. This all began with Trump declaring a firm 50-day deadline for Russia to implement an unconditional ceasefire. Moscow's response was immediate and categorical. No. Instead of doubling down, Trump cut the deadline to 10 days. Then that evaporated completely. The must-have demand for a fixed ceasefire vanished, replaced with an open-ended offer to get together and talk, a move Davis sees as emblematic of the problem. What started as a hard-line, non-negotiable demand morphed into a vague discussion proposal. This constant backtracking, Davis warns, doesn't create pressure on the Kremlin. It breeds confusion among allies and erodes credibility at the negotiating table. The lack of consistency has already unsettled European partners and Ukraine's leadership. In one meeting with European heads of state and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, French President Emmanuel Macron said Trump voiced support for Ukraine's territorial integrity and hinted at possible security guarantees. Zelensky echoed that message publicly, but just days earlier, Trump had spoken of swapping some territories and made it clear there would be no NATO membership and no formal U.S. security commitments. It's not just the contradictions that concern Davis, it's the timing. Sending mixed messages right before sitting down with a unified and disciplined Russian negotiating team could tilt the power balance even further toward Moscow. Russia's objectives have been consistent for years. They know exactly what they want and have the resources to keep pushing until they get it. Some argue this might be part of Trump's playbook, creating unpredictability to shake loose progress. And it's true that Trump has sometimes used unpredictability as a tactical weapon. But Davis cautions that this situation is different. When the stakes involve war, territory, and global security, unpredictability without clear end goals can backfire. You can't keep changing your bottom line and expect your negotiating partner, especially one as strategically disciplined as Vladimir Putin, to take you seriously. Adding to the uncertainty are reports from the Times newspaper about a West Bank-style governance model allegedly floated by Trump ally Steve Witkoff in talks with Russia. The idea, Ukraine keeps its internationally recognized borders on paper, but the areas Russia occupies would be run by a Russian administration. Davis is blunt, this is a non-starter. Both Ukraine and Russia claim, in their constitutions, that the territories in question are theirs, non-negotiable. And beyond that, the Gaza model of split administration is hardly a model for stability. It's been a cycle of violence, unclear sovereignty, and enduring conflict for decades. Why replicate failure? Davis doubts Moscow would even consider it, given they've already declared the territory's part of Russia. So with the meeting looming, who's in the stronger position? On this, Davis leaves no room for debate. Russia. The battlefield realities speak for themselves. Russia enjoys major advantages in air power, artillery, munitions production, military-industrial capacity, and manpower. While drone capabilities may be roughly equal, in most other categories, Russia holds the edge. Ukraine is suffering from troop shortages, struggling to replace losses, and facing reports of hundreds of desertions monthly. Their forces are spread too thin over too wide an area, leaving inevitable gaps in defense. These weaknesses have been exploited, most notably with Russia's breakthrough north of Pokrovsk, the largest in 2 years of fighting. If Russia can expand that bridgehead, and Ukraine exhausts its last strategic reserves, trying to hold the line, the consequences could be catastrophic. Against this backdrop, Trump's reliance on force of personality is unlikely to shift the battlefield reality. Davis warns that no amount of charisma can replace hard leverage. And right now, Russia has it. The U.S. signaled through Vice President J.D. Vance that if negotiations fail, Washington might step back and leave Europe to manage the war. That possibility terrifies European leaders, who fear Trump could simply walk away and leave Ukraine isolated. Davis even suggests that outcome is likely. The West currently lacks the means to compel Russia into concessions it doesn't want to make. In negotiations, power dynamics rule, and Russia can simply say, "Take this deal, or we'll take more on the battlefield." With their current momentum, they can back up that threat. If the West refuses terms, Ukraine's forces will continue to be worn down. Eventually, it could reach a point where the Ukrainian military collapses somewhere along the front, creating an opening that can't be closed. In that case, Ukraine risks losing the war outright. On the home front, Davis notes that American public opinion still leans towards sympathy for Ukraine, but patience is running out. After years of military aid, with no decisive victory, and with domestic programs like Medicare and Social Security under budget pressure, more Americans are questioning why billions continue to flow overseas. Trump supporters, in particular, remember his campaign promise to, quote, "end the war in a day," and are growing restless. In the end, the unpredictability Davis describes boils down to this. Trump has set multiple red lines on Ukraine and then erased them. He's promised tough conditions, only to replace them with open-ended chats. He's reassured allies about territorial integrity, while floating ideas for territorial swaps. When he walks into that meeting with Putin, the Russian side will know exactly what it wants and exactly how to get it. The question is whether Trump will walk in with a fixed strategy or whether his position will depend on the mood of the day. That's why Davis calls this meeting unpredictable, not because of what Putin might do, but because of what Trump might decide not to do. So what's your take? Drop a comment below.